Asian sauropods. Welcome guys once again to the channel, Ranking with Dinosaurs, where we rank, you guessed it, dinosaurs. And yes, today we're sticking with dinosaurs because we're continuing the series of sauropods through the continents. I'm just calling it that. It's not called that. But I am doing tier lists based on sauropods from each continent. So today we're going to be covering the Asian continent. And we're going to be looking at the sauropods. And again, this place has a ton of sauropods. And a lot of very sparse remains of sauropods. So, I had to pick some that are, mostly well known. However, there might be one or two that are, much more incomplete than others. But I try to pick ones that have mostly very good remains. But yes, so without further ado, gonna be starting with OPISTHOCELICAUDIA. So we're gonna be starting the tier list with OPISTHOCELICAUDIA, late Cretaceous from the Gobi Desert of Mongolia. Now, this type species is actually a very well preserved skeleton, which is only lacking the head, making it one of the best known sauropods from a single skeleton, from a single specimen. It actually had a bunch of tooth marks all over its body, which indicates that it was probably scavenged, which probably explains the missing head. So they were probably eating it while it was already dead. Relatively small sauropod. I'll say relatively because this guy was still 43 feet long. So take that with make that what you want. But interestingly, by the condition that gives it its name, because this guy's decided to put the name OPISTHOCELICAUDIA, which I just learned how to pronounce, because when I saw it, when I read this name when I was a child, I was like, brother, how do they come up with this? But it actually means the posterior cavity tail. Very 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 innovative name. Like, wow. But respect to the paleontologists, obviously. It is possible that this guy may have been able to rear on its hind legs because of this condition that it had. Funnily enough, one little tidbit of information is that in the Namek Formation, there's also another sauropod known as MAMENCHISAURUS, which is known from only a single skull. Now you might be thinking, well, a single skull, wow. What does that have to do with this? Well, OPISTHOCELICAUDIA is known from almost all of its skeleton, except the skull. Now you see why that is kind of funny. It is believed that there are two separate genuses, but makes you think. Paleontologists definitely thought about it. So OPISTHOCELICAUDIA, I think I'm gonna start middle of the road, B tier. ISISAURUS. Now, gonna be moving on. ISISAURUS. Now, the name of this dinosaur is honestly like, who gave the right to this guys? But it actually means the Indian Statistical Institute. ISISAURUS, ISISAURUS. Yes, that's what it's actually named after. But this guy's from the two formations specifically: the Lamenta Formation from India and the Pab Formation from Pakistan. So it was, had a pretty long range. It is actually known from better remains than most other titanosaurians. ISISAURUS being a titanosaur. Actually medium size, so not absolutely enormous like other titanosaurs. At around 59 feet and like 17 tons, something like that. Their skull actually resembles other types of sauropods like Diplodocus and Apatosaurus. But again, these guys don't have anything to do with each other. I mean, Apatosaurus and Diplodocus are diplodocoids from North America hundreds of millions of years ago into Jurassic, and ISISAURUS is a titanosaur from Asia. So, nothing to do with each other, except that they're sauropods. But yeah, pretty funny. We do know it ate a bunch of different types of leaves from trees because we actually found fungi in their coprolites, which is a fossilized poop, if you didn't know about that. And it did live, it had to share its habitat with 3 different types of a Bellusaurus: Untitled, Rankingwithdinosaurs, and Rajasaurus. Rajasaurus and Isisaurus being heavily recently portrayed in an episode of Prehistoric Planet. Pretty cool episode of Prehistoric Planet. Pretty cool segment too. But Isisaurus, I actually think I like it. Do I like it as much as A tier? Do I like it as much as A tier? I'm going to put an A tier for now. Ruyangosaurus. Now, this guy is from the early Cretaceous in the Howling Formation in China. Now, this guy is among the largest Cretaceous Asian dinosaurs ever discovered. At a whopping 115 feet. The remains are pretty scarce, yes, but we can get this extrapolation because we do have a femur which measures 6.7 feet. Yes, that is only the femur. It is insane. Again, I'm gonna show you right here. I actually have a Ruyangosaurus figure. This guy is entirely in my in the scale that I like my collection, but I just thought this guy looked pretty awesome. Again, this guy's a Micronarian, so Titanosaur, and that's why they put it with all these osteoderms on the back. I don't know if they actually look like this. I think it's a little too much. All these spikes, but artistic liberty. It looks pretty awesome, in my opinion. Pretty long neck, pretty upright posture, as with all the other Titanosaurs. This one has a pretty characteristic body plan. It's pretty generic Titanosaurian body plan. And I actually like how even the neck has some of those osteoderms too. But yeah, this guy actually had to share its habitat with other huge sauropods like MAMENCHISAURUS, Huangdi Titan, and Untitled, which probably suggests that this guy's actually had to niche partition its food because, to keep this insanely huge size, you'd have to eat different things, especially if you're competing with other titanosaurs, with other sauropods in general. So you probably had to eat some different things, probably preferred other things. So Ruyangosaurus, I like it, but do I like it so much to put in A tier? I think I am. It's one of the biggest ones. LINGWULONG. Now, we're moving on to actually the Middle Jurassic. This is from the Ningwu province in China. A Dicrasaurid, which is pretty cool. Dicrasaurids, again, are mostly from Africa, where the namesake of the group, Dicrasauris, is from, and also South America, which is, where Amargasaurus and all of those guys live. So it's pretty cool to see a Dicrasaurid outside of the, usual continent that we find it. And yeah, it is the only definite diplodocoid from East Asia. So this guy is actually known from several partial skeletons, so several individuals are known to be Linguolong, and they are actually at different ontogenetic stages in life. So we have a pretty good picture of how this guy's kind of changed throughout its life, how the different changes to their anatomy and all of that. One of the cool things is that their snouts, which in Dicrasaurids is usually square shaped. This guy had a more U-shaped one. And, some of the other things are, pretty standard, like the very short neck, pretty characteristic of these guys, and their much more longer tails. It had also pretty tall, I wouldn't say like a sail, but, it had a pretty hump back. They had that hump back, which is, typical, again, of Dicrasaurids. Linguolong, I like it. Do I like it enough to put it in A tier? I don't think so. Do I like it enough to put it in B tier? Mm, I'm gonna put it in B tier. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of B. I'm gonna put it in C tier. Shunosaurus, the Sichuan lizard from the Sichuan province. That's what it names. That's what the name means. This guy is a very small, well, not very small, but small in terms of sauropod. Sauropod sizes, estimated at 36 feet. So pretty small. Had again very short neck for a sauropod. And the skulls are actually found very numerous, but they're found mostly in a compressed or disarticulated way. So interpretations did vary a lot, and we didn't know exactly what the skull looked like, but it did have very robust teeth and very elongated for some reason. And they were used like garden shears, like to just eat plant matter like crazy. This guy was because they're small size, they were much probably a low browser, so it didn't have to compete with huge sauropods. This guy's from the late Jurassic, so big sauropods, very tall ones, were alive during this time. And in 1989, one cool discovery was made. And it was the discovery that this guy had a tail club. Yes. Ankylosaurs, stay mad. Shunosaurus came up with it first. This guy had 2 successive spikes on top of their tail club, which is, kind of give it like a pincushion with pins on top of it. Look, and it was most probably and definitely used to fend off predators like Gasosaurus and Raptor. Those guys, there were no slices, so it had to defend itself. Shunosaurus, I don't think I'm the only one. Shunosaurus is one of the coolest sauropods ever. Being one of the smallest one and being this cool, come on. You know where I'm going to put it. It's going to go straight into S tier. EUHELOPUS. Now, this guy is a macronarian. Very similar to Brachiosaurus and other Titanosaurs. Specifically on their limb proportions, since their forelimbs, were much longer than their hind limbs. Which, if you know anything about Brachiosaurus and Titanosaurs, maybe it could have reared on its hind limbs. So, pretty awesome. But this guy is much smaller than those guys. Actually, at 36 feet. That is pretty small. I think it has the same as Shunosaurus. However, Shunosaurus is much more horizontally built. And EUHELOPUS, having those very much longer forelimbs, much more taller ones, probably was more vertically oriented. So it's not low browser, but high browser. Probably ate much more from trees. This guy is very significant because it was the first dinosaur scientifically investigated from China. Yes, I think it was in the 1920s, something like that. So one of the first ones, one of the first dinosaurs discovered from that continent. Pretty awesome. And it is actually known from a relatively complete skull, which is, as I said in the other sauropod videos, that is a rarity. But still, I know this guy is pretty small. 4 tons. It's comparable to some animals today, but, still had a 4-meter neck. So, much bigger than us, for sure. EUHELOPUS, it's nothing crazy. You're going to go down in C tier. BELLUSAURUS, the beautiful lizard from the late Jurassic. This guy from the Shingogu Formation? Yeah, Shingogu Formation. I think I'm saying that right. But these guys are known from a famous juvenile bone bed. These individuals were 16 feet in length, so, very small. And these guys were found together all in the same quarry, which the leading theory is that these guys sadly probably died in a flash flood, which we've discussed some flash floods before in other videos of other bone myths, but must have been really sad. Probably they were scavenged too by predators. Again, it's called Bellusaurus because the beautiful lizard, because they were small and very lightly built, very, very elegant. But yes, very eloquent with their words, the paleontologists, the Bellusaurus. But yes, I mean, these guys were still 16 feet, so I think they were 2-year-olds, so it's a pretty big 2-year-old. But their affinities are unknown. We still didn't know exactly where to place them in the tree, but if I'm not mistaken, I think they're at the base of Macronaria. But the base of Macronaria, or recently, I think it was a couple of years ago, it was suggested that it might have been a MAMENCHISAURUS. But that is, don't quote me on that. I think I'm remembering that correctly, but might be wrong. So Bellusaurus, I don't think I can put it in B tier either. I think I'm gonna do a little bit of shifting. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put LINGWULONG in B tier. I like LINGWULONG. It's a Dicryosaurus from Asia. I'm gonna put Bellusaurus in C tier. MAMENCHISAURUS. Now, come at the end of the tier list. I'm gonna be talking about MAMENCHISAURUS. Again, one of the most famous ones, especially because of its remarkably long neck, which made up like almost nearly half of the total body length. And yes, I'm gonna show it to you right now with my MAMENCHISAURUS. I'm just kidding. With my MAMENCHISAURUS here. I recently acquired this figure. It is freaking awesome. So you can see, again, long ass neck, almost half of his body length. It's pretty insane. Like, oh my god. I don't know how freaking like blood would pump all the way from its heart to all the way to its head. Like, these guys were airheads probably. But yes, we actually numerous amount of species have been assigned to MAMENCHISAURUS, which is also why it's known as a wastebasket taxon, because a lot of researchers question even the validity of some of its members. But for the ones that are known, I think the biggest one, which is the species Sinocarnodorum, is actually estimated to be 115 feet. Again, most of that is just pure neck. But yes, this is the Shaximiao formation. Sorry, the upper one. This is where most MAMENCHISAURUS fossils are found. Their actual skulls actually vary quite a bit between species too. Like, I think this one that I have here, this is the next biggest one, Hochuanensis, I believe. Yes, I know it's Hochuanensis because this guy actually has a bony structure at the end of the tail too. Pretty rad. I don't know why it would have needed that. Probably in courtship or some kind of display too, with other teammates. And you actually see the little kink here is actually also known from MAMENCHISAURUS. And other Titanosaurs later do have this too. And MAMENCHISAURUS don't have anything to do with those, but pretty interesting. You can actually see also the thumb claw. This is known from Sauropods from this time. But yes, MAMENCHISAURUS. I love MAMENCHISAURUS. It's so awesome. I bought this figure just because I love MAMENCHISAURUS. It wasn't cheap either. But yeah, Mamenchi, I mean, you're gonna go in S tier. That is the Asian sauropod tier list, guys. Once again, thank you for watching the video. Please let me know. What do you think of the tier list? How would you change the tier list? What is your favorite Asian sauropod? Which one did I miss? I know I missed a lot. I know I missed a very... You probably were thinking of a certain sauropod to be here, but because I talked about its... I don't want to say other half because we know they're different. But maybe I'll leave that one for a part 2 of Asian sauropods. So, please guys, like the video. Helps a lot. Subscribe. It helps even more. And once again, thank you. I will see you in the next video.